Hey, this is editor Jeff here from the future or the past. I don't know. Welcome to Do the Thing. Hello, Kat. This week we're trying something a little different. We're trying an interview with Doug McArthur. He's a musician, and I mentioned him a couple of episodes ago, and this is kind of an experiment. Again, you're teaching me what the show is. So I thought couldn't do a live stream because of the holiday, and I thought, well, great time to do an interview style podcast and to put that out on a Friday. So regular live stream will be back Monday. We're going to keep doing our Monday night creator chats, which is what we call the live stream. And I'll cut those up into episodes of Do the Thing. I look forward to taking your questions and hearing advice from you and learning what you do to stay creative and to stay productive in making your creative works, and just how you're coping with life and being a creative person. But this week is an interview with Doug, so we're going to try that, see how that works, see if you like it, and let me know. And if so, we'll find more interesting creative people to interview. So that's it. Please enjoy this interview with Doug McArthur, and we'll be back next week with a regular episode of Do the Thing. Hey! I'm glad you're here.
I'm getting a notice that my internet connection is unstable.
Seems fine on my side. So
okay.
Far, so good. We'll just keep rocking and rolling.
I can hear you just fine. It's just, watching you move. It's a little janky, but that's fine.
I'll try to be very still. The internet's vision is based on movement. So we're in Canada, but is this a home office or what is this?
Yeah, so I was saying, this is my home office. We bought this place. Prior to this, I was living in this much smaller house on my own before we got together. And so it's been very nice because I've had the opportunity to set up a dedicated workspace for myself, because I have worked full-time from home since late 2019. Yeah, pre-pandemic.
Yeah. You got in before the deadline. That's good.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That's just how it worked out, I guess. I have had remote jobs actually in the past as well that I've really enjoyed, and some other ones where I've worked in an agency that had an office downtown, but then gave you lots of flexibility if you wanted to work from home a couple of times a week. So I've always had a workspace at home, but now I actually have like a full room with a door that I can close, and just be in here and focus. And I mean, nobody else is here during the day, but it is still nice to have a dedicated space for my work and all my other tinkering. So that's where we're at right now.
So so it sounds like work and play and creativity happen in the same physical space, right?
Yes and no. So I think when it comes to like me being in a place where I can like record music ideas and work on other like projects, whether that be I'm designing a website for some freelance client, or I'm just doing my jobby job, all that stuff pretty much happens in my office. But I do try and go other places as well, just to like get in a different headspace. Sometimes I just go a little stir crazy too, and I need an excuse to go somewhere.
Right. I'm that way.
That's why I went to the Apple store the other day.
Was there anything there?
Was there anything there? Well,
we're right before, aren't we?
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I ran into someone who I worked with a long time ago. I went through a communications and broadcasting program at Red River College here in Winnipeg, and part of that was that they give you co-ops, so they give you little internships that last for 2 or 3 weeks at different places. And so mine was at a local TV station called City TV, which doesn't exist anymore. And I was working as a copywriter for the breakfast television program. And so they would bring me, okay, here's all of the like promo spots. They do these little 30-second promo spots to let you know what's coming up on the show the next day, and the host would read it. So they wanted me to like basically, write this copy. And I did that for 2 weeks, and then they offered me a job and I turned it down. It was a whole thing. It was a time when I wasn't finished school. My college had a program where if like their whole deal was we want you to get a job when you're done. So if you get offered a position before you're finished your diploma, they just fast track you and they say, you're done. Here's your diploma. I could have done that, but I still felt like I had more to learn. There was probably 6 months left in the program and another internship that I was supposed to be going to, which I was really excited about. So um, it was a weird spot because the person who lined up the internship for me was my instructor in advertising. And so he says, here, I know the manager at this TV station. We'll line you up. It's going to be great. And it was great. But I just didn't feel like it was for me. And so I got to the end of it and they said, we'd love you to work here. And I said, I just have some stuff I'm not finished with yet. Maybe later.
How old were you when you made that choice?
I was I was 26.
That's a really mature choice for that time period. It feels like, I mean, like I know you're right on the cusp of whatever, but like that's it's a long view of your life to take. I think that's smart.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things. I had already gone through university, a 4-year degree, and gotten, my degree in English literature with a minor in philosophy, and had a real fun time. Like philosophy jobs, they're just handing those out like candy. Um, so after that, I worked. I worked for a company doing a whole bunch of different kind of marketing and communications and type stuff, and it was mostly just because a friend of mine's mom ran this company. It was like a publishing company that she was expanding to have like a speakers bureau and all this stuff, and they needed somebody who knew web stuff. And they're like, "Hey, Doug, you're good with computers. Can you like help me fix this spreadsheet?" And I did such a great job at it that they offered me a job. I worked there for like 2 years after I graduated from university, and then that made me realize, like, okay, now I feel like this is what I want to do. I want to work in advertising and marketing. But I don't have any formal education in that. That's why I went back to college.
Hmm.
And then fast forward 2 years, I have this internship, and my main goal was really, to try and get into a position where I would do more strategy stuff. Um, and I was really focused on that. And so I got this opportunity to be like a junior copywriter at a TV station, and it was fun, but I also just didn't see there being a lot of opportunities for me to parlay that into bigger things. Uh,
Yeah.
and so I was like, yeah, maybe later.
Yeah, the TV station's kind of always going to be the TV station. Like they're a factory, and that's what they do. And that's it. That's it. That's a lot of like local community outreach stuff. But my understanding is that's kind of it.
Yeah, and I think like looking back, that decision turned out to be positive not just for me but for other people as well. There was another person in my class who was super eager to do that kind of work and was able to pick up that position because I said no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Whereas she was off at some other internship that she wasn't actually interested in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then for me, like that gave me, I went back to do another internship a few months later at a way bigger agency, and that kind of was the jumping off point for the whole rest of my career.
So that's kind of what put you in where you are now.
Yeah, yeah, in terms of like,
So,
my day job. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was talking to my corner philosopher, and I was buying a pound of philosophy from them to go, and we were talking about when you're sharing a space with, because I know that sometimes you get out, and I do the same thing, but when you're sharing a physical space with work, and it's also somewhere you can go to be creative, only because it's the only place you can kind of be on your own. How are you mentally keeping those things separate, or is that even an issue for you?
It is a big issue for me.
Yeah.
So, okay, not to get into a very long, drawn out story about drastic things that happened in my life, but in 2019, I was working at an ad agency in downtown Winnipeg that was, on paper, my dream job. I was being a marketing manager, working on strategy. We had interesting clients. The agency was growing. Lots of really cool stuff was happening. They had, you know, a really nice modern office space with all of the amenities and snacks and unlimited vacation time, which, that one I could talk about for a while, but
Yeah, that's a secret
let's not
trap.
dwell on negative things.
Sure.
Um, and uh, I was really struggling. I didn't want anyone to know because in my mind, my ambition through my career up to that point was to have a job like that. And so I was trying really hard to outwardly express and to convince myself this is the kind of thing that I want to do, and this is what's going to make me happy and fulfill, you know, what I want to do in my career and other stuff in my life. But the reality was that I was struggling really hard with just the level of responsibility that I had in that role, because there was massive expectations. There was a lot of money on the line for the agency as well, in terms of, okay, these projects have to get done, and clients are expecting things, and we have to deliver results and all of that stuff. And I struggled hard at that. I wanted to do a great job, but I just wasn't. And I didn't find that it was an environment that was full of the support that I would need for the kind of person that I am to get stuff done. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. But fast forward to, 6 months later, and they're saying, this isn't working out, so you got to go, which was super tough for me, sort of given my thoughts about this being the type of thing that I want to do and trying really hard to succeed at it, and just it didn't work out. And being really confused as to why that was. I'm like, this is the kind of thing I want to do, right? The reality was that I was fighting a losing battle, and I didn't know it. And so losing that job was the catalyst for me finding out that I have ADHD.
Ah. Okay.
So I,
Let's go grab a glass of water.
Hey, let's go grab a glass of water. Huh? Tips and tricks.
I probably should have turned that off. I always get caught up. I have the Google daily routine trying to be a better person.
Look, I have things like that too that pop up on my watch, and I get it.
Yeah. It's just funny that it interrupted me at this moment when I'm having this.
Well, but it's
self-reflection,
and it's funnier because it's also a system that you put in place because of probably the thing that you just mentioned, which is like, here's a struggle that I have, and here's literally one of the tools that's helping you popped in to say, hello, I assist Doug.
That's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. I totally have things like that set up for myself. I'm big on automations, and one of the main reasons for that is because I can't, unlike some other people that I know, I can't hold tasks in my brain.
Right.
I can't trust this may be a negative way to say it, but I know for sure that the ambitious thought of, well, I'll just remember that I need to do this thing later. It just doesn't happen for me. But anyway, so going back to what I was saying, about sort of going on this journey of self-discovery, as pretentious as that might sound, that's actually, I don't know any other way to really put it.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't know if I ever had any real big feelings or fear or any kind of aversion to seeing a counselor. And that was something that I actually had done before in the past when I was going through a different rough time. And so I just thought, you know what, I think I need to figure some stuff out for myself as to why, the thing that I wanted to do the most, that I felt like I was going to be successful at, the environment that I was working in that I thought was going to be the best for me, was kind of the worst.
Yeah.
So I went to see somebody about it, and they asked me a bunch of questions, and then they interviewed my girlfriend, and they interviewed my some of my family members, and then they came back to me and said, "Yeah, we're gonna write you a letter, and this letter says you have ADHD, and here's the recommendation. If you want to do medication, you can do it. If not, here's a bunch of other resources you can take advantage of." And so I did that, and that was the starting off point for me having a much deeper understanding of why I am the way I am, how I work, how I can set myself up for success creatively and productivity wise, and literally everything else, and in my relationships, how to express myself when I do stuff that might not make sense to other people, to just basically say, this is how my brain is wired, and this is the reason why I do this or that. And also ask for accommodations as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in my next job, I started that whole thing off being, and this is the thing that I've learned that is some people approach with a healthy amount of caution, is sharing that information about yourself with an employer, because it could be handled many different ways. I was
Yeah.
fortunate enough to work with someone who very who understood that environment very clearly and understood how to accommodate me, and that was great. So I felt super fortunate that it wasn't damaging to me in my job to let them know what I struggle with, stuff like that, and how to accommodate me, things like that. So yeah, so and I've done the same. That was and I've moved jobs one more time after that, and I've always sort of had that same approach and have had a lot of success getting support. So I I try not to go down too many rabbit holes, but I do read a fair bit of stuff online from people who have ADHD, same struggles. Um, and a lot of people are worried about that, or who have had very negative experiences with trying to share that information with their employers. Don't know what kind of jobs they have, but it was a thing that I've seen come up, here and there, was that this could be it could be perceived as something that makes you unemployable or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, that's fascinating. I thank you for sharing that. I am wondering how much of your journey with ADHD contributes to when you maybe why you started, but also maybe why you start or stop making music at any given time. Like, yes, we all get busy with life, but like, in addition, what are the particular things that are going on with you that that either get you in the zone or that get you out of the zone? Do you go on streaks? Like, what is it that works for you?
Oh, it's hard to pin that down. I think I've always I've always had some external catalyst that has pushed me in the direction of doing music. Um, but for the stuff that I just started, it wasn't a New Year's resolution, but it did start, I think, over the holidays. And it had been something that I was thinking about for a long time, because I would sit down and look through my archives of all my little snippets and song ideas and stuff that I'd worked on that I'd never properly recorded, and went, I think this idea is actually worth doing. Um, but I wouldn't ever sort of have that follow up. And I think for me, and kind of tying this back to um, you know, one thing I struggle with, which is sustained focus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me to sit down and open up Logic or whatever it is and try to start putting down tracks and organizing things, it gets complicated very quickly, and it could get overwhelming as well. And so that's, I think, one reason why I had many failed attempts to do a lot of recording and put down a lot of ideas in some structured way myself. And then I just thought, why am I doing this to myself? And I think that was informed by uh, a realization that I don't need to do this 100% alone. And that I don't need to, I can have an idea, and I don't need to be the person who 100% executes it. And so I that happened to line up with someone who I have known from the music scene in Winnipeg for a long time, just tangentially, whether it's because I went to see his band's shows a whole bunch and just admired his work, or I met him through other musicians who I've worked with, stuff like that. There's a pretty tight-knit community of musicians here. Anyways, his name's Rusty Robot. That is his legal name. He changed
That's
it
great.
legally. He's an excellent human being. And so I just reached out to him and because he had posted something about how he had some room to take on some new clients. He does production. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He does everything. And so I was like, this is perfect because I know I love his songwriting style. He can basically do everything. And I think that he'd be a good foil to me. And I also he had also been somebody who recently, found out that he has ADHD. And so he and I have very similar brains, very similar sort of ways of thinking and stuff like that. And I think I just was like, I think this is going to work. So I reached out to him and said, hey man, like I got some song ideas. Here's a video of me playing this one song. Like, do you think this is anything? And he goes, yeah, man, I think that's super cool. I'm like, yeah, okay, can you help me record it? And he goes, yeah, absolutely I can. So that's kind of how that started. And I think it was back in January that I started working with him, and it's been incredible since then. Like
Oh, wow.
I've just really enjoyed not just making music with his help, but just spending time with him too. Because like I said, I think we were just very similar personalities and stuff like that. So he's just a super fun person to hang out with, which I don't know. I don't know if you experience this too. I'm 41 and I find it really difficult these days to just sort of have new friendships come out of, anything, especially since, we've just gone through a period of time where everyone was living insular lives and now it's opened back up again for quite some time. But I think for myself that my default state is like solo. And
sure. Yeah.
So to have someone to bounce ideas off of, who I feel like gets all my stupid Futurama references and all of that, has been really great. And so it's just, in terms of my confidence in myself and my abilities creatively, having someone like that on your side, it just has been like, it has skyrocketed my own productivity. It has now sort of convinced me that I should keep working on more new stuff, which I've been doing. And just now has sort of, because this is the thing too, is that I just felt like there was a big sort of hole in my life where I was like thinking about what makes me happy? What are the things that I do in my life that, just make me feel like I'm spending my time valuably? And making music is definitely one of those. And I just thought, I kind of haven't done that for like 6 or 7 years in any significant way. Why? Like, what is it that stopped me from doing it? And I had to think like, yeah, sure, there was a bunch of life stuff, like you were saying, that happens. But that's not enough of a barrier for me. I just had to get out of my own head about it.
Oh, sure. It's interesting to hear about creativity as like quality of life booster or salve, or like another way to sort of maintain and scaffold the rest of your life. I think that's fantastic. Like it's interesting because I live in in a little bit of the other world where it gets hard for us sometimes to kind of have a proper life because it's always like the gig or the thing or the, even just like freaking like, when can I cut my hair? Because if I auditioned for something a week ago, I got to look this way until I get a call or don't get a call or get some sense that something's happening or not. That kind of weird stuff.
Right.
And COVID was weird for us too, because we were isolated like everyone else, except I did a whole bunch of TV shows during COVID. So you would go up and you'd get swabbed on the set, and I was weirdly working and meeting people a lot during this weird lockdown time because all the studios were just like, everyone's watching TV, we gotta make TV.
Yeah,
Which was
a very interesting motivation for that.
It was a weird time. But I love hearing that you found a creative partner, and like my initial instinct had been to ask how you felt about the work that was coming out of that, because that's just how my brain is warped. But hearing you get to sort of the end of the story, I really came around to, like, it's not that the quality of work's not important, but because that drives you to keep doing it, but hearing that just the process is so enriching to your life as a whole. Theater kids especially are taught all the time, like, it's about the process. I spent a huge chunk of time, a couple months, rehearsing a bunch of college actors. I've directed a show as a favor to a friend of mine, and the performances were like a few days, but the rehearsals were a couple of months. And I realized, okay, this is process. So I love that you're finding joy and reward in the process, and that seems to be fulfilling.
Oh, absolutely. Like, all I do now is think about the next time that I'm going to get back into the studio so we can keep doing cool stuff and trying different ideas and just seeing how things come together. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
I do come at it from a completely different perspective now, though, because there certainly was a time in my life where I was, sort of standing on the fence, thinking about, okay, I have two skill sets that I've been developing, one in music and one doing, marketing stuff and being a writer. And there's certainly crossover there, obviously, but I did think for a little while when my first band was called Broken Halo, and we had a moderate amount of success. We put out 2 records. We toured Western Canada. We played some big festivals. We played with some pretty big name acts like Sum 41, ZZ Top, The Trues, The Tea Party. I'm trying to think of Evanescence.
Nice.
We played with some cool, like, really big bands. And so, we were at a point where, if we had all really dug deep and committed to that as being a thing that we wanted to do, that there could have been legs to it. I think our music was strong enough and that there was enough interest in us as a group that we probably could have, got representation and booked more tours and kept writing and recording more music and stuff like that. And for me, I think I looked ahead to what that lifestyle would be as somebody who was in his kind of mid-20s at the time. And I thought, do I want to be a person who just, like, exists in this weird nominal space where I'm just on the road all the time? And
road life is hard. Yeah, that's hard.
And I've met many performers who chose that lifestyle. And there are some massive trade-offs to it. So I don't know. I guess it's just a personality thing, whether or not that just kind of jives with if you can stay happy and productive while you're always on the move. But I do think that there's a point where people burn out from that.
Oh, sure. We're close to Athens over here. So I have a lot of friends out there, a lot of musician friends and stuff. And there's that whole spectrum of stories with them. You have some who are lifers, amazing talents. They find various levels of success or they don't, but some of them are always out on the road, and it's the same feeling you described. And maybe that's their life and they love it. And there's some people who are always kind of between gigs, or some people who did it really hard for a while and now they're just in Athens doing other things, for similar reasons. So it's just fascinating. Like, everybody's path is so different. And that thing that always kind of eats at me about like, like hustle and grind, and like everyone's always trying to,
Right.
if you're not trying to be a number one top of the mountain, then something's not worth doing, right? Which is, I think, a stupid headspace that I have been in when I was younger. But that whole way of thinking just worries me, because you can't be that way without like judgment on other people. And I'm like, I'm listening to like you and talking about how like the work I've heard is great, but just hearing you talk about the process and how fulfilling that is for like your life as a whole person, and the choices that you decide to make, to protect your life as a whole person, and then to not let go of the creativity, but to work it into, your life in a holistic way, I think has tons and tons of value. I don't know if it's like an American thing or not, that like there's such like a career thing, or if it's just, I don't know, but it's just something I notice, and I'm trying to encourage a conversation of things are worth doing that are not your job, as far as like you have to do creative stuff as a job.
Yeah.
Says the guy who does creative stuff as a job. Where am I talking from? But do you know what I mean? Like,
I do know what you mean. I mean, in my day job, I do get some opportunities to do creative stuff, whether that be just, helping my clients build out landing pages and making that look great for them in a way that they didn't expect, or, just coming up with solutions for things. There's creativity in everything, that you do. I'm sure even mathematicians have some level of that. But I think, like, for me, the split between my jobby job and what I do outside of that, creative projects outside of that, whether that's like building myself a retro game console with Raspberry Pi, or making music, whatever it is, that once again, I feel massively privileged and super fortunate to have the freedom to do those kinds of things. And the only way that I have that is because I have a great job that pays well enough that I can pay all my bills and still also have time to pursue creative stuff. And so for me right now, it's like, I think what I was getting at before when I was saying, okay, there was a point where I was kind of on the fence about, do I want to do music as a career, or do I want to just sort of keep that in my back pocket, and go down this other path, which I did wind up doing. I felt at the time that it was a hedge. I was like, all right, well, if the music stuff doesn't work out and I don't become a massive superstar, then I know I've already, sort of built up some other skills, and I can just go like fall back on that and have a job. And it was a little depressing at the time. I was like,
sure.
Does that mean I'm not confident in my own, in my own sort of talents as a musician or anything like that? But looking back on it now, I'm so glad that I'm in the spot that I am, because now and I know this is probably a different experience for you, I don't have to, I don't have my whole livelihood wrapped up in my creative output.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, my union's about to go on strike, dude. I get it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I've been seeing a lot of that.
We just voted yes, like or it's not official, but like, yeah, we have our little thing from SAG-AFTRA that's like, hey, why don't you vote to authorize a strike? And we're like, okay. I think, you're right. Our experiences are different, and I appreciate that. And I like the world where either choice you had made at that crossroads is valid. If you had chosen to go the other way and like, I'm going to dig in, no matter what, it might have worked out, it might not. There's no way to know, right?
Right.
But you know yourself better, hopefully, than anybody. Which also I think is something that's like super important that I want to help communicate, is like if folks can really, really understand themselves, I think that's so important to having some kind of satisfaction in life. And I think, I could not have made the other choice. As many other things as I've traded off, and things are not easy, but like I could not have made the other choice, and I have tried. Like it's like, okay, well, maybe I should, and uh, the universe keeps picking me back up and saying, no, buddy, you should be over here. It's like, but I'm broke. It's like, yeah, well, whatever. But it's like, okay, but in the hard times, it's like, yes, but this is what I chose. I take responsibility for that choice, and I understand that even in the hard times, this choice was the right choice for me, which is nice in the good times too. But I think either choice is valid, and what matters at the end is that you are able to be present and like happy where you are, and like you find the way to make the creative stuff work for you that in a way that is healthy with your life, which it sounds like you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think what I'm really enjoying right now about making music that's very different from my experience in the past
Yeah.
is that, number one, this is completely solo effort for me. Yes, I do have an incredible producer and someone who's really helping me make the best version of everything that I'm putting out there, which I couldn't be more thankful for. I am so happy that I have that relationship. But on the same note, like I don't have a band where every member may have slightly different ideas about what success means,
and
to be in that group.
Were you formally, like the band that you've listed, was that like a proper band, or was that, do you know what I mean? Okay, that's what I thought, because that's the people you toured with.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
got
so
it.
I've had two bands in the past. The first one called Broken Halo, and we did all the touring and put out a couple of records. And then after that, I formed Soapbox.
That's who I was thinking of, with Soapbox. Yeah.
Yes. Formed Soapbox with a guy who I went to elementary school with, who's another brilliant musician and also producer. He actually went through school to be an audio engineer. Mm-hmm. And so he has an incredible studio in his basement, and that's where we recorded that album. And, we just sort of put together some folks from sort of different parts. There was actually, the former bass player from Broken Halo joined Soapbox to play guitar. And then a software developer who I worked with at an agency in Calgary moved back to Winnipeg because it's his hometown, and it just so happens that he plays keys, and he had always been interested in doing something with me because he and I had connected on that when we worked together at that agency. And so he joined the band to play keys, and then Colin, our bass player, who was my buddy from elementary school, was in another band with a really good drummer, and he brought that drummer on. So, that's a pretty common story of how bands come together. Everybody knows somebody who can sort of fill in those spots and stuff. And we gelled really well together. We wrote a bunch of songs, recorded an album, and we never really, the only thing that I think I would like to have done more with Soapbox is that we didn't tour. We didn't tour at all. We played a handful of shows, and that kind of was it. And then the band dissolved because everybody in that band kept having babies.
That happens. That happens. Yeah.
So
yeah. Do you ever record on the big inch reels? Do you know what I'm talking about? The big reels.
Yeah, like a tape machine? No, unfortunately not. I've been in a bunch of studios that have that equipment, but I haven't had the privilege. There's an incredible studio here that has just started getting really busy in the last little while. That does. I don't know if it's all analog, but they have a lot of analog equipment, and that's kind of their specialty. They're called No Fun Club. And you should take a look at their Instagram. They're very active there, and they do tours around their studio space and stuff like that. And they're a bunch of goofballs, so it's fun to watch. But they have an incredible space here. I have never recorded there, but I've seen it, and it's really, really interesting. And they do all that analog stuff, all the tape stuff. So maybe next time I start up a recording thing, I'll go there.
I'll have to check it out.
Where I'm at right now with just being creative and making music is that I feel a much freer than I have before, because there's like I said, I'm not with a band. There's no real expectations in terms of what other people think the music should sound like, or what should we do with it? Where should it go? Things like that. It's just me on my own. I'm self financing my own recordings. I have no expectations or deadlines in terms of What does it sound like at the end? What's my vision for it? Stuff like that. I'm letting that evolve pretty naturally. And actually, that's a thing that I know, like, my producer Rusty has been very sensitive about too, which I appreciated a lot. Is that this is the first time that we've worked together on music, and so he didn't have any idea what my expectations were going in, and so I found it great that he would stop a lot of the time, and let's say we were working on laying down drum tracks, and he would have recorded a take, and then we would stop and we'd talk about it, and he would say, okay, well, what about this part, or did you like this rhythm, or does that line up with what you thought this part was going to be like? And I mean, there are just some instruments that I just don't have enough experience on to sort of give any informed opinion. I can just say I liked how it sounds or I didn't, but most of the time I'm just like, I trust you, like I trust that you have an idea of what the best version of this is, and that you're going to apply your own style to it, and that's great. And so I have a much more relaxed attitude to what the output is than I have had in the past, because I've had to sort of manage a whole bunch of other people's expectations in a band.
Right. There's a movie. Oh, I shouldn't even bring it up now. I'll tell you when we're off. I'll tell you when you're off. There's a movie that like totally hits this balance of being a working person and making music, but also the dream. That I saw at a private screening that I will tell you what it is later.
Okay. It sounds cool.
Because it's not a,
well, I just finished
cool,
watching,
but it's not a thing yet.
I just finished watching Daisy Jones and the Six. And I mean, as much as that's just a straight sort of fictional retelling of Fleetwood Mac's rise and fall, one of the things I found super interesting about it is all their sort of dramatization of what it's like to be in a studio and to try and make music with other people. And obviously, I mean, those are the most exaggerated versions of those relationships, where people are literally having fist fights in a studio over what they want the song to be, or you changed my lyrics or whatever. I've never had that experience. But I did find it really interesting to just have I always gravitate towards stuff like that, just any sort of fictional version of something that I've had experience with myself is always really interesting to see, and especially when it comes to making music. So I don't know, like the good version of that is Once, where it's just a super sad sack guy with an amazing talent who has this relationship with this other musician that should be a romance but isn't, because he's got this other thing going on. That to me is an amazing story, and I saw Glenn Hansard live shortly after that film came out, and he blew me away. Like, he's in person just as charming as he is on film.
I'll have to check those out.
So those kinds of things I always think about.
Yeah. I'll have to check both of those out. I spent a lot of time as a kid in recording studios because my uncle was trying to be a country music singer, and it was interesting. So we go up to Nashville and we do the whole thing, and some life lessons learned there about contracts, especially. Before, because I'll have to hop away in a little bit, but I wanted to know if there's any kind of music that you like that you wanted to share, if there's something that you wanted to play, or if there's something you want me to drop in, like later I can put some art on or something. But I don't know if there's anything like orally that you want to share.
I thought about that. I'm very happy to play something, and so I don't know how it's going to wind up sounding on the other end. But I'm certainly happy to give this a shot. I did have a kind of,
it's like the tiniest of tiny desk concerts.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me give this a shot. And if it doesn't sound great, we can edit it out, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's see what I can do here.
This is called Control. We've already said all we need to say. We've already had it out. take your petty words and pack 'em all away, yeah. 'Cause we've already had it out. If there's a little heart beating in your chest, then you'll know to let it go. If there's a little voice screaming from inside, then you'll never lose control. Never once again lose control. We've already had all the little fights, 30 years but over 5. So take your petty words and pack them all away, yeah. 'Cause we've already had enough. If there's a little heart beating in your chest, then you'll know to let it go. Oh, oh, oh. If there's a little voice screaming from inside, then you'll never lose control. Never once again lose control. No, 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 no.
Hey!
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. So is that a new one, an old one? What is it?
That is, it's old, very old.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I wrote that in like 2009.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's been around for a long time. And it's funny because the meaning of that song has changed for me. Like, I haven't changed the lyrics or anything. The structure of the song is basically the same as always been. But I just come at it at different times in my life, and it starts meaning different stuff to me.
Mhm.
When I wrote it, I think I was most just sort of thinking on the most superficial terms of like relationships that don't go well in my life, and why that happens, and conflict with people, and sort of getting stuck in a rut in a relationship. And like, there's a lyric in there about how you have all the fights from 30 years but over 5. And so I think now what I come at it from is a much more sort of positive outlook, because I feel like my songwriting in the past, it's been so drastically negative. Like, I don't know why, but I was just influenced by other artists at the time whose lyrics were always just such a downer that that's sort of where I tended to go as well. But now I just come at it and I'm like, no, this song is actually about somebody who realizes stuff isn't going well, but who has also had the realization that they can take control and they can change their own attitudes, and they don't have to necessarily be, burdened by someone else's version of that story.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I love how it stays with you. Like, when you make something and it's sort of that companion in your life as you move forward, and the meaning of your art will change to you. Yeah. And when you think about when you share stuff with people, that's happening for them too, right? Like, whatever your song meant to someone in 2009 they probably have a different outlook on what it might mean now, and it might be in line with yours, or it might be something totally different based on what's happened to them since then. So that's pretty neat.
And I think that's such an interesting, thing that happens when you interact with your own art or some other people's, is that it does change meanings. And I think as an artist, somebody just putting creative stuff out into the world, one thing that I think just takes time to realize is that you can't be precious with your work. That, like the Steve Jobs quote, "Real artists ship."
Yeah.
So you do have to let other people experience it at some point. Otherwise, why are you doing that? Not to say that there aren't people who just make stuff just for themselves and nobody ever hears it, which is also totally valid. But I do think too that your relationship to your own art changes when other people hear it and have their own interpretations of it, and you might actually reframe your own perspective on what you put out there based on what somebody says about it. I know that's happened to me many times when somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, this X song was, really important to me because I just really thought that it was about this." And I think about it and go, my initial bad person reaction to it is like, "Wow, you really messed that up because that's not what this is about at all." And I just thought, no, it's about whatever you think it's about. And
I understand that. I've gotten reviews before where it's like, "Oh, was that what I was doing? Oh shit, okay." I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, I don't know if this is necessarily something that you would, I think you'd have to be an extraordinarily mature person to start out making things with that perspective, and just let them be out there in the world and not have emotional, your emotional state tied up in how people react to stuff you make. But I also think that right now with the things that I do, that it's funny when I start working on something, like that sort of skeleton of a demo that I sent you, which is going to be, produced. I'm not shy to show people the evolution of something that I'm doing, because I'm always excited to be like, check out this cool idea I had, and look at these harmonies that I'm going to put here, and this is such a cool idea. And then, for example, with that specific demo for that song that I sent you, that's called Draw the Line, I had a really interesting idea for some backing vocals, just this line that kind of repeats, and I took it to the studio when we started actually recording it proper, myself and Rusty, and I showed him that, and he was like, "Dude, this is super cool, but this doesn't belong here."
Okay.
And having him be super straight about it was so great, because that gives me confidence that he's not the kind of person who just is going to let me do whatever I want and produce something that isn't the best version of it that the two of us can come to. It
is a level of trust when you have someone who's going to say, "Hey, maybe not this one." You're like, "Thank you." That can prevent a lot of doubt in the creative process.
There's a mastery to how you tell someone that an idea that they have isn't bad, but isn't going to produce the outcome that they would hope.
Sure.
So the way he phrased it to me and sort of the way we talked about it made me feel like, okay, no, he's taking care of me here. This is cool.
Yeah.
And so,
because then you can trust them when they say something is good.
Absolutely. Right. And that's another thing I think is difficult too, is that when especially if it's somebody who you are just starting to work with creatively, that if they're heaping praise on you for things that you're doing, I just think a lot of people, including myself, come at that and have a difficult time accepting that they're being sincere about it. So I think that's also just a very important lesson to learn, that when someone comes to you with a compliment, even if it may seem, like there's not a lot of weight to it, or that it's something that people just say to be polite, the more that you are accepting of it and you say, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, I did think, I had a good feeling about this, and I'm so glad that, you liked that idea, because, that validation is so important.
Yeah.
To, like, I think I've mentioned this before too. Just having that, like, person who validates the stuff that you do and says, like, these are great, like, those kinds of things. It's such a confidence booster, and for me too, it's a massive inspiration to keep working. Right? It's to keep doing more stuff, to do the next idea and the next idea and the next idea.
Yeah, yeah. It took me a long time to get comfortable if someone would say they liked a show or they liked I don't know, some piece of work or whatever. But then I started to realize, like, if someone says, "Oh, I saw this thing, it was really good," like, anything other than "thank you, I appreciate it," any kind of rebuttal or denial, like, even if I wasn't feeling like whatever it was not where I wanted that piece of work to be, anything other than "thank you" is like me calling them stupid. And that's, they want to show some sort of, like, they want to connect, they want to share, and me saying, "Oh, it really wasn't that good," it was me saying, "Oh, well, you clearly," like, it could come off as me being demeaning to them or saying, dismissing them, and, like, that's really shitty.
I know what you're saying. It's like somebody.
Oh no, that was terrible.
Hey, I saw you in this show, and I thought you were really great, and I just really loved the performance, whatever they say. And if you come back to them and say, that wasn't my best work, that conversation could be perceived as you sort of saying, well, wow, you really must not have good taste if you enjoyed that, because in my mind,
yeah,
the worst thing I've ever done, kind of thing.
Sure.
Everybody has hang-ups about things that they put out in the world, right?
Yeah.
And once you're done doing the thing and you put it out there, most of the time you can't go back and change it unless you're like a George Lucas. There is a sense of, like, you want to be like, you want to accept the compliment, and you want to let people know that you appreciate them saying the thing. Because sometimes too, and I've felt this way too, I don't know, I see like somebody who I recognize from something, I guess actors probably get this all the time, because it's so, like, your face is so much tied to everything that you do. You see somebody who has done something that you really liked, they're in the airport or whatever, and you go up to them and you say, "Oh my God, I love your work. I saw you in this movie," whatever. It becomes almost like a transaction to them. Sometimes I feel like, especially people who've been, who have a lot of notoriety, or that happens to them all the time. I hear people saying that they really struggle with this, that it can be really taxing. To have to continue to do that interaction over and over again every day as you're going through your life, and to have it still mean something, because it means something to the person on the other side, right? But to have it still mean something to you, that
right.
You don't need the validation anymore, maybe. So I do think that there's a balance there of you want to seem humble, and you want to be accepting of a compliment, but at the same time, I guess there's just it depends on what your own personal experience is, and especially coming up to someone who you have that parasocial relationship with, where you've absorbed them as a person in so many different things, doing stuff, and your perception of them as a person is completely tied up in, their work, whereas their experience as a human being going throughout the world is totally different. And so there's a complete imbalance there. I think is really, really difficult to navigate sometimes.
Yeah, well, you're also too close to it. You know all the things that were wrong with it. You know all the things that are weird about a show or about a gig or whatever. Like, so sometimes I think we lose perspective. And as long as, if you're an entertainer and they're entertained, and, like, their life is better for a few minutes because of a thing that you got to be a part of, like, and everything that's wrong with it. Well, every restaurant you go to, like, the staff is a mess, and they know all the things that are dysfunctional about that restaurant. But, like, if I love the food, that's fine. Keep being dysfunctional. It works. I don't care.
Yeah, whatever you're doing. Yeah, I've definitely had that too, where, on previous
your personal life is a mess, but this burger is great.
Yeah, your marriage is in shambles, but damn,
But
that
boy,
cheeseburger was really good. uh, oh man, no, I definitely have
sorry. Go
dealt with
ahead.
that on a
Albums.
probably
Albums.
much more minor scale too. I was saying, yeah. I mean, yeah, albums that I've put out in the past. There are songs that I really, really like, and that I, still come back to and go, you know what, this is pretty good. I'm happy with that. Other ones where I'm like, that was a total stinker, and whatever happened in the studio. That sometimes it was decisions that were completely like not. I wasn't even present. Working with the band, there's times where we had sessions where our guitarist and our producer would just meet and do a bunch of stuff, and then we would come back later as a band and listen to it, and they would be like, you guys, we worked so hard on this, and check out this and that, and doesn't this sound incredible? And I'd listen to it and go like, that's not what I imagined this song sounding like. And like I was saying before, and then you have to navigate sort of relationships. You don't want to upset people who've worked really hard on something that they value in their creative
Yeah.
work.
Well, and you want to be
But
open
when
to it
all has
being
to come
different.
together as a whole, right? So I've definitely dealt with that too, where I have a dear friend of mine who knows every bit of music that I've ever put out, and he's a big fan, and I appreciate that massively. But we have big disagreements on like whether or not a certain song on a previous album is any good. And he's like, man, that song is, that's one of my favorite ones, and I just like it. And I'm like, that's cool and all, but it's a total piece of garbage, and it could have been a lot better. Like, that, and I've had that back and forth, and I just realized like that's not a productive conversation. I'm not going to convince him differently because his opinion on art, like, and so as time goes on, I just have to like kind of, like I said, just kind of let go of the idea that it's ever going to be different.
Yeah, and it's not yours anymore. Like you made it, and that person likes it. It's not yours anymore. It's theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think we're gonna end on this high. I appreciate so much you sharing the music and like your story and just your perspective, just understanding how your art integrates with your life and how you keep on doing it and making stuff and doing the thing that makes you happy.
Well,
thanks
thank you
for
very
being
much
here.
for inviting me. This is so cool, man.
Yeah.
You know what? It's like I was just mentioning the whole idea of just having a parasocial relationship with someone, and so I know you and I have chatted back and forth on
Yeah, it's been fun. It's
and
been a lot
YouTube
of
comments
fun.
and stuff like that. It's super fun. But at the same time, I think I probably have been more. I've been absorbing stuff that you've made more than I have been interacting with you, and so it's so cool to have an actual conversation with you and all that. So it's super fun.
I appreciate feeling like I'm not shouting into the void.
Yeah, that's got to be tough when you are doing like just a solo live stream, and you're trying to watch comments and then also still have things to say and stuff like that. It is it's a very strange situation that I think is just, to me, it's like part of the zeitgeist now that we have so many people who just do streaming. And when I first started watching a lot more streamers like on Twitch and stuff, I just found it so strange to watch someone sit there silently and go like this, and they're scrolling through the comments and going, oh yeah, and then they're reacting to stuff. But it's like, it's so, there's such a time dilation happening where like there's massive gaps in between sort of when you say something and when they're able to respond to it. And a lot of time while that's happening, they're building a mechanical keyboard or playing a video game or doing whatever it is they do. And so to me, it's just like it's such a strange conversation that I don't think could have ever happened before. It's like a radio call-in show where instead of call-in, they get telegraphs.
Right,
because
and it is weird that it's
massive amount of time that happens.
Let me read this. Let me read this. It's like swimming. Right. It's bizarre.
Yeah, but it's not even so much like letters from listeners, right? Because then you're like reading it in advance and you've got prepared responses to some degree. No, it's live, but it's not. And so I do think that that's like, I don't think there's anything necessarily good or bad about it, but it is sometimes really funny to watch somebody just go completely silent as they scroll through their own chat.
Oh,
just
it's
to
so
find some
weird.
little nugget of
It's
something
so
they can
weird.
comment on.
Well, too, because you want to be like respectful of. I hate to miss anyone who says something, and especially like folks have been sharing like really stuff that's like kind of personal about art and stuff like that. So I feel bad if I miss any of it. So I try not to. But it's weird too because I come out of like an improv background, and I did a lot of improv, and I'm trying this. I'm practicing, in front of everyone because it's fun. And again, my union's going to go on strike, and I'm so used to doing things now that are takes, and you shoot it and it's in the can, and you made stuff that's not going to come out for months. And half of it you can't talk about and whatever. So it's kind of fun to just be like, blah, hello world, what's happening right now?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Right. And you do the thing, and you've got that conversation happening on the spot, and then you've also got ammunition to cut that up and make little segments and do your animations and do everything like that. So it gives you, man, it must keep you busy. That's all I was thinking.
Well, so far it's fun. We'll see. I'm trying to pace myself, a little bit. I imagine like there will be a time where like the streams kind of come and go, as I want to do them, and I stick to, maybe stuff where I find some more creatives to talk to, because there are folks that are in very interesting places in their career, but those people are more time constrained because they're more public figures and stuff. And so it's like, well, if I'm going to get with them, I'm probably not going to get a live stream with them, but I can probably talk with them in a can for a little bit, and I can roll that into something, So I really mean it when I'm like really trying to learn from everybody, like, what the hell is this? Like a lot of times when I used to teach improv, I'd walk in a room and I'd be like, well, what do they need? Like, that is what you had planned. But you look at this group of people that are in front of you, and maybe someone's having a weird day, or maybe the group is not listening to each other, or whatever it is. I like to learn, well, what do they need? And then craft the class around that. And I feel like this is like the same thing. It's like, well, what's going on with people? I don't want to assume that I know anything about anything. It's not an advice thing. I'm just trying to like learn what is actually working or not working for people, and how can we maybe be a little nicer to each other and understand that creativity doesn't have to be your work, but that also doesn't mean it's not important. But if it is your work, that's also okay. And I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out, man.
Well, I've been inspired by all the stuff that you've put out.
That's so kind. That means so much to me. Thank you so much. That is so kind. I'm trying.
I think I mentioned too. We had a little a little offline chat just trying to organize this thing, and we were talking about how you had been thinking of doing this podcast for quite some time, and you'd had the website and all this other sort of all the things that circle around the actual thing, and then you just decided, why am I waiting? Like, what is the thing that's sort of going to be going to actually trigger me to do this? And you just realized, like, nothing. Just go for it. I had the same. I was commenting on that because, like, I had the exact same experience myself. I was gonna do a show. I had a really clever name for it. I set up a website for it. I made a logo. I did a whole bunch of sort of the workaround, trying to set myself up to make something that looked really cool. And then I got up to the point where I was like, okay, now I actually have to come up with topics, record shows either just on my own or line up guests. And I was like, this is too much. So I got up to that point and then stopped, which is too bad. So I might revisit it now that you should
go for it. You should. That's so kind. You should go for it. That makes me. I love it when folks are like, yeah, and I'm doing stuff, and that makes me really happy. You know what killed me is, I don't know if it was 10 years ago, but it feels like it was. I had this show art. I had a bunch of show ideas, and I was showing some thumbnails to people, just casually at a restaurant, just a friend of mine. And my friend's girlfriend leans over to the do the thing art. She goes, "Oh, I want to know what that one is." And that's been sitting in my head forever. It's like, I need to just do this. I need to just do this. Anyway, blah blah blah. Well, we'll call it here for tonight. But I'm like so glad that you're here, and I'll cut this up and make stuff, and I'll make you look cool. That's my job. It's really good to talk to you. I'll catch you online and stuff.
Yeah, you bet.